Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I have a great pleasure to welcome you to today's talk titled ¿Qué les pasó a las abejas? What happened to the bees? Which is the title of the film co-directed by Adriana Otero with Robin Canul. And Adriana will be here with us and talking about the film and the context and her experience making it. So Adriana has been recently featured by La Jornada Maya, the press from Yucatan, as a very promising forthcoming director who is fighting for better future worlds. And if you've seen the film, or if you will see the film, you will be able to appreciate the whole full dimension of that struggle. Adriana has also made another documentary film titled La Boca de la Culebra, Snake's Mouth in English, that has already won various awards on international festivals. And I'm sure we will hear much more from her and about her in coming years. If you want to become a fan of her work, like I am myself, you can follow her on Facebook, where she talks about all the new projects and successes of her previous films, and what is happening in her own film production company called Bee Cinema, or Cinema ABEJAS in Spanish. So I just want to add that the subject of today's presentation and the film has a very particular meaning for me. You can see that behind me today is one of the beehives of Melipona bees located in Pech, hometown of Lady Pech, one of the two protagonists of Adriana's movies, where I myself have done a lot of research and still am planning to work. And one more thing that probably Adriana will mention it, Lady Pech has won last year 2020 environmental award that is considered to be a Nobel Prize for environmental activists. And one last thing before I pass the word to Adriana, we are inaugurating with this lecture the special series that we're featuring in LACIS this semester, Rural Latin America. And the reason we decided to focus on rural Latin America is because this is where some of the most consequential and important transformations are happening, where some would like to install a sort of factory of food production, industrial, very efficient and profit-making, and others believe that that should be a space for alternative world-making, learning significantly from indigenous and other rural populations whose knowledges have not been sufficiently taken into consideration by policymakers and the governments. So thank you so much, Adriana, for being today with us. And please tell us about the film.
Sure, thank you, Kata. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Adriana. I'm a filmmaker and I live in Yucatan. My work has focused on the documentary genre. I appreciate the invitation and the time to present this. I hope you have had the opportunity to see the film, but if not, it will be available for a few more days until the 1st of October. I'm going to share you the presentation. Oops, no. Okay. Okay, well, this is my first film, long film. I don't know how, feature film, I think it's the name, is What Happened to the Bees. And well, today I'm going to share with you my experience of investigating and making this documentary. After the presentation, we will give space for questions and answer. Kata is going to help me with the translation at that moment, and I hope my pronunciation and speaking are decent enough to understood. I would like to start by sharing the synopsis of the story. In 2012, millions of bees died in Mayan indigenous communities in the state of Campeche. After knowing about the causes and effects on the environment, health and culture, Mayan communities led by Gustavo Huchín and Leydy Pech will face racial prejudice, the collusion of entrepreneurs, Mennonite communities, Mexican authorities, and the multinational company Monsanto, which has put at risk the subsistence of these communities because of the sowing of transgenic soy in its territory. Now I will briefly talk about the background of this story to understand it a little better from the following points. The first point is the beginning of the problem. In 2012, Monsanto was approved by the Secretariat of Agriculture and Rural Development, known as SAGARPA in Mexico, to plant transgenic soybeans. It was a permit for the planting of GMO soy in 253,000 hectares of the Planicie Huasteca, Chiapas, and in the Yucatan Peninsula. However, a legal complaint process was quickly started in Yucatan that was supported by the Yucatan government in that time. When this happens, the Mayan community manifested to Sagarpa and Semarnat to request for its prohibition. The states of Campeche and Yucatan joined to request protections. However, the cultivation of transgenic soybeans never stopped. The authorities didn't help, and permits continued to be granted to plant it. So when they saw that these instances didn't support the case, they turned to the Supreme Court of Justice of the nation to request again the prohibition of this activity. It is because of that a campaign is carried out on change.org. Don Gustavo managed to make the situation known to more people thanks to this platform, where he requested signatures with the title "Let's Save the Mayan Jungle," "Salvemos a la Selva Maya," and other titles. And these signatures will demonstrate to federal authorities that not only Mayan beekeepers and farmers were requesting this change. And thanks to the support obtained with more than 74,000 signatures in this campaign, this issue was discussed on November 4th in 2015 at the Supreme Court of Justice of the Nation in Mexico, which ruled in favor of the Mayan communities of the Yucatan Peninsula and provisionally suspended the planting permits while an indigenous consultation is being held. But this consultation should be pre-informed and in good faith. The second point is the death of bees. Since 2012, when these transgenic planting permits were granted and soybeans began to be cultivated, the Mayan beekeepers of Campeche and Yucatan began to notice a high mortality of their bees and questioned the cause of this phenomenon. Samples were taken and the laboratory tests showed that the bees were killed by a herbicide called glyphosate, used to plant soybeans in large areas given to the Mennonite communities. So this caused that the communities were organized and the Mao-Heme collective was created to stop the advance and achieve the cancellation of the permits to plant this kind of soybeans. In fact, there are records in Campeche that in 2015 the herbicide killed 80 bee colonies and no one responded for them despite the complaints being made. On the other hand, in Mexico, more than 67 toxic products are used without any control for the purchase and sale for the agro industry. And it is mainly Mennonites who use these products on a large scale. Now we come to glyphosate, one of the main enemies in the film. This chemical that I am talking about is used in the planting of many transgenic crops, in addition to other herbicides. For soybeans, this product is used to ice the amount of glyphosate commonly used for other crops, since soybeans become increasingly resistant, which means that more product is needed. And something important to emphasize is that the World Health Organization, the OMS, has declared that glyphosate is potentially a cause of cancer. So here it becomes an urgency to prohibit the use and sale of this poison. I'm not sure about the situation in the United States. It seems to me that only in certain places it is prohibited. But for example, in Austria, it has been completely prohibited, and many other countries are restricting and regulating the use. And that means that we are realizing the damage that this is causing to our environment and people. Another important point is about the Mennonite communities. In the state of Campeche, these people are dedicated to planting transgenic vegetable and fruits, for which they use a large number of chemicals that also affect bees, the soil, and the water. For example, they grow equally GMO tomatoes, chili peppers, and rice. And when it's rain, the Mennonite fields become areas that are flooded with water and agrochemicals. And that is why they drill absorption wells with machines, making all the chemical residue reach the water tables, accelerating their contamination. In fact, the water that runs through the Yucatan Peninsula is contaminated with glyphosate and other chemicals. And the people who drink water from wells here or in near communities of these crops have glyphosate in their urine and breast milk. And that is very disturbing. And well, this is something that you see in the film, but the Mennonites who are in favor of the cultivation of transgenic soybeans are currently prohibited from this crop, which has increased the tension between the Mayan community and the Mennonites, generating a cultural shock due to the difference in thinking about the work of the land in the region. One from the vision of harmony with the environment, and the other only seeks the production and money, regardless all the consequences. So this is the situation that I find myself in 2015, precisely with that petition where Mr. Gustavo Huchín appeared requesting the signatures to ask the Supreme Court in Mexico because this transgenic crop and agrotoxins used were killing their bees and polluting the environment. So that news caught my attention because I didn't know what this was happening in my neighboring state. Also thinking about thousands of dead bees seemed terrible to me. It was a destruction of biodiversity and of an important part of the Mayan culture, since beekeeping is an ancient activity that has made the community subsist economically. So there were two main motivations: the struggle for the environment and the struggle for the culture. Investigating a little more, I knew that it was something that was being raised since, as I mentioned, in 2012. And that made me think, well, if I didn't know that this was happening, I don't know, maybe because the media didn't think it was important, or maybe because it was not convenient for them to know. How many people have no idea what is happening? And even worse, how many communities where these types of products are grown and that are also beekeepers in Mexico are going through this. And that was the thing that triggered the desire to make the film. I look for allies who would like to be part of the project, where the photographer, the sound recordist, the production coordinator, and the co-director come together. So I decided as well to work with Robin Canul, who was already working with the communities, and this made this first meeting easier and to be able to enter to film the process. The idea of the narrative of the film was going to be the follow-up of the indigenous consultation that had been ruled by the Supreme Court. However, as the days went by filming the session, I realized that it was not progressing. In fact, the consultation stopped because there were no security conditions for the Mayan communities to be able to dialogue with the authorities. There were some intimidation attempts by the Mennonite communities, for example. So then I realized that if I continued filming with that line, it was going to become an informative and very boring documentary. And in the cinema, what we seek is to tell a story accompanied by emotions that causes something to the people who sees the film. Then the decision was made to focus more on the lives of the main characters, the Mr. Gustavo and Miss Leydy, Mrs. Leydy, on their ways of thinking and how they related to beekeeping and bees. The reason for having two characters was to be able to show the role of women and men in this kind of struggle, and to play with this relationship according to the species of bees that each other of them works with. Gustavo, for his part, works with Apis melliferas, which are the most common bees, where one has to wear special suits to avoid being stung because these are aggressive. One funny thing was that during the filming, we all had to use the film equipment with these suits, and it was very difficult, and the photographer was stung like 3 times because she took off her glove to make the focus in the camera. Fortunately, she was not allergic, but it was very challenging. Okay, I will now like to show this sequence of the film. We will see how Mr. Gustavo and his brother extract the honey. You are going to see that they use certain centrifugal instruments that make the honey fall, and it is very interesting if you don't know how this is done.
A cuchillo. He kana kacha tin. Yan kabi at suhay delo. Viste chilok pa itas ka. Mi bayo ko solek ko sekolah.
Oops. Okay, and Leydy is beekeeper of mellipon bees, which are an endemic and very special type, since these bees don't use their sting or attack, which makes their treatment easier. However, these bees don't produce much honey, and their beehives grow inside wooden logs. And And an interesting fact is that these bees produce very powerful healing honey. That is why it is a bit expensive, and its flavor is different. It takes more citrus, and it is more watery, and it is delicious. If you have a chance to get it, buy it, you will not regret. Now we will see a piece of Leydy's work with Melipona bees and how she teaches his son, her son, to work them.
Yo había escuchado hablar de las abejas meliponas por mi abuelo, que en paz descanse. Yo conocí los jobones, los primeros jobones aquí en la casa, porque lo tenían colgados detrás de la cocina, pero hasta allá no conocía más sobre las abejitas.
Ay, este ve el color de la cera que tiene. ¿Ya lo viste? Ese es diferente, ¿verdad? Viendo ya. Y el color que de esa cosa que está sacando. Y así como está toda la cría, ese sí tiene cría, ahí está. Pero toda esa cría está embolsada. Sí. Eso porque ya lo embolsaron por el frío. Adentro, este sí es cría, este es cría, ahí está.
¿Tienen polen blanco?
No se ve nada, no se ve si tiene, todo ya lo metieron en esa bolsa.
Sus patitas.
No se la ve, ya están metiendo.
No lo pongas en todo así, por eso da trabajo cuando lo... Nada más donde está en la orilla, hijo. Sí, yo sé. Mi primer acercamiento con las abejitas fue así de que, pues, no los conocía, a qué riesgos se enfrentaban las abejas, y con el apoyo de otras personas grandes de la comunidad nos fueron diciendo, mi mamá nos fue también como compartiendo todo el conocimiento que ella tenía. Cuando yo termine los lagos, deja los trastos, yo termine los lagos, ¿oíste? Yo cuando yo termine, pues vaya con los lagos, es mucho, no vais a la casa. Fue entonces allá donde me empecé como a identificar con las abejitas.
Kevin.
On the other hand, Don Gustavo, besides being a beekeeper, is a farmer, something that gave us the possibility of showing this difference in working with the land. Don Gustavo cultivates corn, pumpkins, and beans mainly. In this sequence, while he tells about what began to happen with the death of the bees, we can see him working on his land using a traditional technique where he uses a pick to make holes in the ground, and one by one begins to put the seeds. I found it very interesting that while in the film we see this type of work, Gustavo's voice speaks about agribusiness and what it entails, the devastation of the jungle, and the death of bees and other animal species. In my opinion, this is the first climatic point of the film. We also wanted to reinforce that feeling of destruction with the music that Alberto Palomo composed. Alberto Palomo is my boyfriend.
Pues en años anteriores, hasta 10 años atrás, había una producción muy excelente. Me acuerdo muy bien que en esos años, de 40 a 45 tambores en la cosecha. Pero en eso fue disminuyendo. ¿Por qué la baja de producción? Unos le atribuían a la abeja africana. Y otros, no, pues el cambio climático. Pero en realidad no nos damos cuenta exactamente por qué y lo teníamos alrededor. La deforestación por la montaña, supimos que hay muchísimo monte que se está tumbando allá y que se está sembrando la soya transgénica. ¿Y qué es eso? No, pues es una soya que traen los mennonitas, ahí lo siembran, pero ¿perjudica o no perjudica? Antes nosotros dominábamos todo nuestro territorio, era nuestro. Pero ya que se modificaron el artículo 27, entonces ya nos confinaron en unos lugares que le llamamos ejido. Entonces nuestro ejido está delimitado. Y todo lo sobrante de nuestro estado, que era nuestro territorio como mayas, ya lo vendió el gobierno a las grandes empresas o a los mennonitas. Y como en el sureste tenemos tierras muy fértiles, ellos compran esas tierras ahora que pueden comprarlas. Es selva, bosque que nosotros hemos conservado en cientos o en miles de años. Ellos vienen, compran esos bosques y le meten maquinaria, el bulldozer, arrasa con toda la selva o el bosque. Y los animales que allí habitan, los matan o se van, ¿sí? Entonces nos dimos cuenta que a base de la siembra de la soya, este es el caso de las abejitas, que baja mucho la población o de plano se mueren, dependiendo de la pesticida o el herbicida que apliquen en estos montes que están vendiendo.
Okay, I will pass some pages because of the time. Well, these are the most important points that are addressed in the documentary, trying that a very complex subject can be understood from a film of basically 1 hour. I hope you found it interesting, and I would like to hear your comments on the film or any questions you have. Thanks for listening and for your time.
Thank you so